Hi, Oded. Thank you for joining me here at Entrée Capital's Founder Spotlight series, where we highlight some of the inspiring founders in our portfolio and invite them to share some of the lessons that they've learned along the way. So are you ready to get started?
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Amazing. So first, let's get to some of the basics. Tell our listeners who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump into what Mesh Payments is. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
So I've been in the payment space and the fintech space, maybe even before it was even the word fintech was used. I was the one who PayPal brought to start and manage Middle East and Africa for them. That was 2009. That's almost an event in an historical level. And then I've done that for a few years, launched a few countries, Africa, a lot of fun. And then I ran the business, switched to what is, in my mind, still considered the most successful payment company that came out of Tel Aviv, called Pioneer. That's during a turnaround, and that was a lot of efforts during a hyper growth stage before everybody were growing so fast. And for the last 3 years, I'm doing Mesh. We founded Mesh, myself and my co-founder Ran 3 years ago. And that was it still is an amazing ride.
So what exactly is Mesh? If you can kind of give your little elevator explanation.
So Mesh help mid-market companies to orchestrate and manage their corporate spend. One of the discovery we had is that corporate finance people don't like corporate cards. From their perspective, corporate card is something that they could take it's not controlled. Yeah, there is no visibility. If they could, they would have eliminated them all. But then there are so many needs to pay by the employees. Almost every employee now is a small procurement manager, especially when companies are now totally distributed. So we built a platform that helps hundreds of companies. Some of them are really well-known brands. Some of them are entry capital portfolio companies like Monday.com and Riskify, etc., which are all their corporate spending is enabled through our platform.
And so you've been in this payment space, like you said, for quite a while with PayPal and even after that, but shifting from being the one building up even their systems to starting your own company and starting from scratch with everything probably couldn't have been the easiest path. It probably was easier for you than some other founders. But could you tell me a little bit about some of those beginning stumbling blocks you might have had, even though you were so well ingrained into that space already?
So first of all, one of my lessons is there is nothing easy when it comes to early stage startups. So it sounds very fancy from the outside, and all these movies and all these amazing entrepreneurs. It's a very challenging journey. There are a lot of ups and downs. So the last thing I can say, it was easy for me, maybe easier than others. Having said that, and that's something I've seen less and less, the fact that I knew the space well, which for me, it's very important. There are not lately, but in the last few years, there are debates about does an entrepreneur needs to know the space, or he can come and try to solve a space that it doesn't have. It may be an advantage, it doesn't have a clue in what he's trying to solve. I'm of course on the side that thinks that a strong subject matter expertise is key for the success of the startups. Just look at Mesh when we started and we founded when we got our seed round. We were trying to solve a totally different problem. It still was a payment problem, but it was totally different problem for totally different customer base with totally different challenges. And the fact that we had the expertise helped us to pivot. We were in our story, by the way, the pivot happened when COVID started. So we discovered when COVID started that everything that we tried to do before COVID was less relevant. And we took the team with all the expertise, the technology, which was very scalable and flexible. And we looked for other problems, which are more related to some of the things we've seen. And we really, in a very short time frame, have taken these decisions, made a pivot, and the rest is history.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that pivot and why COVID was a catalyst for that? Because I'm interested in understanding a little bit. I've had this conversation with a few founders, is understanding that kind of product market fit and how that has shifted maybe over time from that beginning initial, what you had dreamt and started to build to where you are right now. I want to just dive a little deeper into that. How did you notice that? And what were some of the more difficult things, or what were there some of the things that made that pivot happen and relatively seamless?
So when we started, we tried to solve the problem, which in my mind, it's still a big problem. It's helping businesses, especially in emerging markets, to get paid from their clients, business clients, especially in the developing market. So we've done that through partnerships that we've signed with payment service providers in emerging markets and a technology infrastructure that was based on virtual cards in a nutshell. And what happened is when COVID came, all of our partners, one by one, either called us or didn't respond to our calls anymore, and we understood that their business have shifted in a way that for the next few months, and nobody knew what's going to happen when COVID started, but it felt bad, and we've seen the dramatic decrease overnight. So we had two options. One is to wait, which and you know it's a lot when you make decisions, especially in such a hectic situation. A lot of it is gut feeling. So we felt that, and I assume that COVID was just the trigger. We might have done that pivot before, but we felt that we cannot continue doing what we've done before, and we need to rethink on our strategy. And I always advise entrepreneurs when they want to rethink about things. They usually, I'm always giving the parallel, which is when you have a personal problem, you usually consult with your family. When you have a business problem, you usually go and speak with your network. And that's what we have done. We spoke with some of our friends, which were in relevant positions in what now are very successful startups, and we started asking them what problems we might solve for them, and what was the shift that COVID have impacted their business, and a lot of luck. And we've been in the right time, in the right place, with the right design partners, and that was really one of the drivers. Add to that the fact that, as I mentioned, we are a very strong team. A lot of the people that have been working with us from day one are our colleagues that work with us, either in some of the payments companies that I mentioned, or with the run on the technology side. So we've taken the team, we've decided to go after a new challenge, and we've done it in an amazing timeline. And in fintech, by the way, in opposite to other things, not in opposite, but it's much more extreme. Execution is the key. There are no patents in fintech. Neither one of the companies in our space have a patent about what they are doing. Even PayPal doesn't have anywhere, but PayPal is a huge success story, and there are many reasons for that. But in the end of the day, when it comes to fintech, and that's another advice I'm giving to entrepreneurs that want to get into the fintech space, execution is key. And when you have the right execution, great things will happen.
It's interesting, because you kind of had both perspectives, that you had a pain initially that you knew that you built a solution for, and then you shifted and had a solution that you try to figure out what pain that solution would solve for. And it's very interesting to kind of see how you have come from both perspectives and were able to figure that out. I think that's very interesting. Is there something? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's linked to, like, there are so many distinct moments that have really impacted the decision we've made and the journey we've taken. There is no one aha moment. There were few aha moments. There were few conversations with people we trust. There was a lot of luck, as I mentioned. It's very easy to look back, especially when after a successful pivot, and to try to re-engineer some of the things we have done. As I mentioned, in my mind, we knew what we are doing. We really focused on focusing on big problems in a big space. And it was obvious, especially when we got a lot of that process happened with real clients. We got really short cycles feedbacks that helps us to really focus on the big things and really what matters. And that's another very important thing when you are in an intense pivot.
100%. What is something that surprised you? Let's say going out of the product itself or going out of building your business. What has surprised you most about being a founder in the space? And let's take out, Mesh specifically, but being a founder, even here in Israel, in the fintech space, it's something that's surprising. You don't think you expected?
Well, I don't think surprise is the right word. I would say I'm always amazed how emotional it is. And I work for other companies, for bigger companies with different challenges. I manage teams, and we were chasing big goals. But being a founder of an early stage startup, especially, but it doesn't change when you are becoming bigger. And now we are a much bigger company. We raise more money, etc. It's still such an emotional journey. You can find yourself in a single day in very extreme highs and lows. You win an amazing client, and then you have a problem with one of your partners, and maybe there is a bug that really makes you look bad, and it's so emotional. And you need to, one of the things you need to take this into consideration. I'm not saying there are no emotions when you work with large corporate, and you are not taking it personally when things go wrong, but it's a totally different level. And I really advise people that are considering moving from corporate to a startup, either to fund one or to join in early stage. Really take this into consideration. If you are up to it, great. But if you don't feel that you can live with such emotions, maybe it's not a bad thing to do something else.
Okay, so you have to be ready to be a founder. Just know
you are never ready, but you are never ready. Yeah, but you need to at least understand it's coming, see it coming.
Exactly. Are there any books or podcasts or recommendations you think helped prepare you, or you would think could help prepare somebody else in their journey to being a founder or in their entrepreneurship journey? Maybe ones that can teach them how to cry about or not how to deal with the emotional upheaval.
First of all, I personally am not an emotional person. That's the way I deals with these emotions. I will mention one important book which followed me almost from day one, which is Only Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove. I advise everybody to read it. That was true then, before the startup boom, and then it's even more true today. There are a lot of things I'm doing that are based on that, but generally speaking, I advise entrepreneurs to, and I listen a lot to podcasts, especially around the space I'm in, but not only. There are so many small lessons you can learn from the journey of other people. I cannot say that it changed my perspective totally, but the small things that might reaffirm some of your mindsets, for me, it's very important. And now it's so accessible, and there are so many great podcasts that you can listen to. So everybody has his own. I'm also trying to record as many podcasts as I'm saying. I'm always amazed how many people are meeting me and say, I heard you in that specific podcast, and which is great. I think I'm happy that it helps, so people listen to that. So generally speaking, I advise, with as much as it's tough and there are so many tasks to fulfill, find the time to listen or to read. That's very important.
100%. Yeah, sometimes I do a lot of podcast listening when I'm in the car. And one of the most frustrating things, maybe if you're a next startup, you can do this. One of the frustrating things is that I have all these ideas and all these really great things I hear the guests say, and I can't write it down because I'm driving, and I can't pause it and then hit a voice record because it just doesn't work with a car. So maybe if you could find a solution to that, how to write down all the great ideas that I get and things that I hear from podcasts while driving, that'd be great.
For me, what really makes me laugh is that many people have told me that they listen to my podcast while jogging. So most of my podcasts are very long. So that's why I'm not sure and knowing them, I'm not sure they can run so far, but who knows?
Right. Maybe they just say that. Okay, let's wrap this up, and I want to kind of end with, you had mentioned that when the pivots, you had reached out to some of your close, I guess, teams that you worked with, whether that be your customers. Can you explain a little bit about your relationship with your investors, and particularly why Entrée? What is this relationship with Entrée? What is a relationship as a founder that you see as important when it comes to investors? And touch a little bit on that.
Well, it's very different in different stages of the company. My lesson, and I'm seeing some of my seed. I think for an entrepreneur, during that takes a seed investment, and I joined just lately, a few months ago, to our latest round. So usually my advice is the most important thing to choose seed investors are the willingness to let you run without interfering, while when you need them, they will listen. I'm seeing too many seed investors that feel that they need to influence too much, or even worse, they are a little bit less nice, as I expect from the way you should behave with somebody with so many emotions. The seed stage, as I mentioned, there are so many turns that you need to take, and it's really edgy. And that's why when you need the investors, you should know that you can call them, but they don't need to ask you once a day. You are by yourself, have a lot of hesitation, so you don't need anybody else to call you once every few days and ask you what's going on, because every few days so many things happen. So that's my advice on the seed stage. And from my initial reaction, it feels that Entrée, which is, as I mentioned, they weren't joining my seed rate, but they behaving like that. And I going back, if I would have had Entrée in seed rate, I probably have been benefited it. In our stage, for me, and that's one of the strengths of Entrée, which today, it's all about the network. And Entrée and Avi really leverage his network, and his network is not only local, it's also global, which that's really differentiated between some of the local VCs and the global VCs. We had on that round, for one hand, Tiger, which is maybe one of the biggest or most important VCs from one hand, and from the other end, some of our local VCs that have joined us from day one. I think Entrée, for me, is an amazing combination between local and global relationships, which in our stage, that's one of the key success factors to scale. So we are only, as I mentioned, only a few months with Entrée, but I advise and I've already been asked by other entrepreneurs, but I think if your business is global, and if you specific in the places where the portfolio of Entrée is so strong, Entrée can be a very important partner for you.
And just to clarify, for those that are listening, what stage are you at right now? Just that everyone is aware.
So we just closed. We closed almost 5 months ago a B round, $50 million B round, led by Tiger Global, and Entrée participated in that round.
Beautiful. And let's wrap this up. Anything else that you want to add? You gave some fantastic advice pieced in throughout all of the answers to my questions. Anything else that you want to close with? Anything you think is important for founders or entrepreneurs listening to this to hear?
First of all, I see as a mission for me, in the Israeli ecosystem, there are not many people that have enough experience when it comes to global fintechs. And I see as a mission for me to try to help, as much as we are all busy and we have so many things on our plate. I really believe that it's part of our mission to help, and to help other entrepreneurs, especially younger ones, especially in the early stage of the journey. So I always try to take calls or to even a small advice or even an intro if an entrepreneur will reach out to me, and I urge all the other entrepreneurs in my stage to behave the same way. It's very important, and it's amazing how the Israeli technology and the Israeli fintech ecosystem have matured in the last 2-3 years. but I think we have so many more peaks to climb, and that's something I really believe will help the ecosystem as a whole. The second thing is, again, reach out to us. We help so many companies with their corporate spend. This is a very important subject. It's true that in the last few years, because everybody were focusing on growth, so they a little bit neglected this control on spend, but things might turn. We really help companies. For me, the fact that we have so many strong feedbacks from clients that we really help them operate their companies, that's really what makes me proud. And I really urge finance executives and executives in a whole, if they want to understand more what we do, to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help.
Amazing, beautiful. I think that's a great way to end. And thank you so much for taking the time and for being here with me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I have a lot of tips of advice for me when I eventually begin my entrepreneurship journey. And I'm sure others here that are listening will really find this valuable. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.